Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Film Nerd Central, a new podcast focused on discussions of film and TV, as the name might imply. This will hopefully be a new segment on the Krunch Crowd YouTube channel, and I suppose like the live reactions to various gaming events, it'll just give you a better idea of sort of the people here at Krunch Crowd and their various interests with regards to gaming in the case of those, and film and TV in the case of this. I'm your host, Oscar. You might last remember me on the Krunch Crowd YouTube channel as a special guest at the PS5 Showcase live reaction, which was pretty exciting, if you ask me. Now you'll remember I was a special guest on that. A lot of things have changed since then. You'll see I'm now hosting this. I'm new to the Krunch Crowd team. Essentially, Jamie, head of Krunch Crowd, has put me in charge of all things film and TV here at Krunch Crowd. So I will be running this podcast, and if it's successful, I will be running it for a little while longer than just this first episode, hopefully. But, we'll use this to test the waters. But anyway, I'm going to shut up now and introduce a very first special guest to this podcast of Film Nerd Central. Josh, hello.
Hello there.
Hi. Well, very nice introduction. You can't, I don't think there's a better way to introduce yourself on a film podcast than with an Obi-Wan hello there. But there we go. Yeah, so this will usually be the, I imagine this would usually be the format of this show, just me and eventually maybe a co-host later down the line, alongside a special guest, and we'll discuss films in general. We'll typically focus on one film in particular, which we do have that one film today. You'll find out what it is a little later on. Naturally, the focus of this episode is going to be on Christmas films. As on the date we're recording this, it's the 30th of November. We're just a day from the very festive month of December. So soon enough, we'll be getting to a very Christmas-heavy sort of time, at least in sort of public life and seeing it around everywhere and all that. But also in the films that we watch, which often tend to be quite Christmas focused at this time. But yeah, when you're watching this, viewers at home, or listeners, should I say, it'll be probably the first or second week of December, so a lot closer to Christmas than we are. But with that all out of the way, let's get straight into our first sort of topic of this podcast, which is just a simple, what have we been watching recently? Josh, would you like to go first?
Well, I would like to try, but the only thing I've seen recently, aside from the Secret Christmas movie, is Krampus, because Christmas is happening now, and The Mandalorian, because I'm a Star Wars nerd.
Oh, cool. So you have a Disney Plus subscription now?
Indeed, I do.
All right, cool. I've not bothered with Disney Plus as of yet. I'm on 3 different subscription services at the moment, and so I don't know if I would bother going for a 4th.
I didn't choose to have Disney Plus. It's just a thing I have, and obviously I like The Mandalorian and I like Star Wars, so it works for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah, I would, I'm certainly interested in watching The Mandalorian as well. I'm a Star Wars fan. I wouldn't say I'm a nerd about Star Wars or anything. I'm not like a diehard fan, but I do appreciate Star Wars. I have, since I was a little kid, so, yeah.
Would it encourage you more if I said Taika Waititi in one of the episodes?
Oh, I know that Taika Waititi is in The Mandalorian, yes, and that does encourage me more, certainly.
Oh no, I mean, like, he directs. I think it's the last episode of the first season. He directs the full episode, and you can tell. All I'm going to say is you can tell.
That's interesting. Is it very like? I mean, obviously, for those listening, you may not know, I am a huge fan of Taika Waititi and his films. I think they're just really brilliant, really excellent blend of comedy with drama and tragedy and more serious moments. You know, but I'd imagine, given the Mandalorian, it's quite a blockbuster series. You know, I'd imagine the similarities are with Thor Ragnarok. Or did you find similarities with any of his other films?
It was just a general similarity to the rest of his whole filmography, really. It feels, when some of the jokes hit, you can almost feel Taika Waititi. I didn't know he'd done it when I watched it, but then I looked through the credits and went, no, that's definitely Taika Waititi. And he's like, that made my day, I'll be honest with you.
Right. Yeah, well, fair enough. I mean, I'm very excited to see Taika Waititi popping up in various different places at the moment. Well, I mean, ever since Thor Ragnarok, really, which was really just sort of his big push into the mainstream film industry, you know, because I mean, my personal favorite film of his is, and probably always will be, unless he can top it somehow, Hunt for the Wilder People. Just a really, really excellent film. Again, just a real good blend of comedy and tragedy, with some really quotable moments. Like, I quote a lot of the moments, a lot of scenes from Hunt for the Wilder People. It's very good indeed, and you've seen it as well, right, Josh?
Indeed, I have, and I will also have to agree with you on that statement. It is probably my favorite film of Taika Waititi, and
Yeah.
also quite happily in my top 10 ever, but that's beside the point.
Whoa, I didn't know that. Actually, that's interesting to know. Probably, yeah, it is probably in my top 10 ever as well, to be honest. I mean, I list it on my Letterboxd profile, which you can follow, by the way, letterboxd.com/obfilms, or I guess if the web link doesn't work, just obfilms on Letterboxd. It's one of the four films that I have listed in my favorites page on Letterboxd. So I do like that film very much. It's listed alongside Eighth Grade, The Raid 2, and Your Name. I know Your Name is one that we'll both share in that favorites list, but
Indeed, we do.
yeah. It's an excellent anime film all around. So I realize this has become more of just a general discussion about film than about what we've watched recently, but whatever, let's go with it. I have a Netflix subscription, Amazon Prime Video subscription, also Mubi subscription. And Mubi has been really great over the past few months, especially over lockdown, with providing a lot of artsy films, and I suppose also just under the radar films in general that I wouldn't have known about before. I do tend to have a pretty good eye for, noticing under the radar films, but a lot of these I'd never heard of before, and I very much enjoyed them. So yeah, that is certainly a streaming service I would recommend if you're very much into film. I will say I saw a pretty interesting, I don't know if you would say, horror or thriller film on Mubi called The Other Lamb, just starring Rafi Cassidy, who appeared in The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which you've seen, right, Josh?
Yep. Very long time ago now, though.
It was a while ago, yes, that we both watched it together. But yeah, it's a very slow burn type horror. It's been compared to The Witch and Midsummer in tone and atmosphere. It is also about a cult, a ritualistic type cult. But the cinematography in it is absolutely brilliant, to be honest. Like, there's some really, really standout shots in that film. And the narrative itself was not, was fairly engaging, but takes a bit of a while to really get into because it is so slow paced. And I think I can do slow paced films, but it depends on whether the narrative being explained is actually engaging, which in the end, The Other Lamb was. But anyway, Yeah, I would recommend that, although I think it depends on what sort of film watcher you are, whether you would find enjoyment in watching The Other Lamb or not, because it's very much an artistic um, film, and I'm not sure mainstream audiences would necessarily enjoy it as much. But yeah, so moving on, let's jump straight into the main sort of discussion. Yeah, well, apart from the individual film discussion, Christmas films. Yeah, they are rather popular, at Christmas time, alongside Christmas songs. I would say Christmas films at this point tend to be a lot of the same every year, as in, not to say, and not about new Christmas films, but a lot of the old classics keep getting rewatched as people, I think a lot of people have annual traditions revolving around certain Christmas films. So, what do you think about Christmas films there, Josh?
Well, Christmas films are very interesting in the sense that they're all quite entertaining, but you also get like shunned for enjoying them at any other point in the year. They can also vary quite scarily in quality sometimes, and you can have some very entertaining ones, and you can have the not so good ones that are just a bit sort of, here's your generic comedy, but it's got a Christmas tree in it now, so it's a Christmas film.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting thing to talk about as well. Not only the idea that Christmas films can only be enjoyed at Christmas time, which depends on the film really, and how, for me, depends on the film and how much Christmas is involved in it.
Hmm.
Um, and then that ties into the second one, which is what defines a Christmas film. And for example, there's the age-old argument of, is Die Hard a Christmas film or not? Because although it takes place at Christmas time and Christmas, decorations and sort of themes are involved, it's mainly about terrorists invading a tower block, So there's debate as to whether that is a Christmas film or not. But also, as you said, I mean, what I wouldn't define as a Christmas film is just sort of other films that have maybe a 20-minute group of scenes that are set at Christmas, because often films take place over the course of many years in a story, or many decades even, So Christmas can be covered in those at some point. But to me, that is not a Christmas film. So yeah, how do you see it?
I honestly, depends how you look at it. I mean, I want to say it isn't a Christmas film because the majority of the film is not focused on the part where it's about Christmas. Really, it's an action film that happens to be set at Christmas rather than a Christmas film, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a, it's not heavily like, because obviously if you take something say like Gremlins, which also sort of comes into that argument, and Nightmare Before Christmas, there's a lot more elements of Christmas. So like in Gremlins, obviously Gizmo is a Christmas gift, and it's all set roughly at the Christmas period, and there's a lot of talk about Christmas. It's not just it happens to be near Christmas and everything else going on around it has nothing to do with Christmas.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point, actually. I think, that it has to be a certain. I mean, because I've always considered Die Hard. I've always said that it is a Christmas film. However, on second thought, as what you're saying, yeah, perhaps not, because I think to be a Christmas film, or for your film to be specifically Christmas related, then it has to be, has to have a plot that sort of directly involves Christmas and um, is discussed often within the film, you know, as well as sort of the atmosphere or the aesthetics of the film being Christmas, or the setting of the film being Christmas-like.
Mm.
So I think it's about that sort of combination that makes films Christmas films. But yeah, yeah, some of my favorite Christmas films are different to, I think, what a lot of people would say. I think a lot of the typical Christmas films that people like to watch every year are like, yes, Die Hard, Home Alone, Elf. I'm personally not the hugest fan of Elf, but hey, that's just me. I'm probably going to get slammed for that opinion in the comments section, but we'll see. I'm sorry. I did not particularly find that much enjoyment in Elf. I will maybe try to watch it again someday. Anyway, um, there's some other classics as well that I'm also not too fond of, like A Christmas Story. I just couldn't necessarily get into that. I do understand it's very much like a film of its time, a product of its time, but yeah, I couldn't really get on that one. But one that I know is one of your favorites, or at least one that you like to watch every year, Josh, is The Polar Express.
Oh yes, that is a classic. Even if it's a bit stiff and some of the animations are a bit weird, you can't deny the music's quite catchy and the general plot's fun and Santa's great and it's very wholesome. It may not be the most incredible of films, but it's just a very nice, warm feeling film. There's nothing particularly bad about it, but there's obviously nothing legendary that will go down in history aside from Tom Hanks playing everybody.
Fair enough, yeah. The Polar Express for me is I'd say certainly a childhood favorite, a Christmas film I used to watch a lot in my childhood years, but now I've not seen The Polar Express in many years. It's been a long time, but I do agree with you on those points. The music, not only obviously the actual Polar Express songs, which I think if I would watch them again, I could probably do with less of. But the score by Alan Silvestri is still very, very good. Very sort of sweeping, feel good score, I reckon. And yeah, the other thing obviously is the CG faces, right? Or at least I don't think it was motion capture at the time,
I
but
believe it was. I feel like I've seen behind the scenes of Tom Hanks in mocap for it, but that may be me making it up. I
it could
feel
have
like
been, yeah.
I feel like at least some of it was. I don't know if all of it was, obviously, but like a decent chunk might have been done.
Yeah,
Because I think that's why no one liked it, because it started going at some points to like Uncanny Valley. Because remember, there was a lot of complaints about the animation for one reason or another.
yeah, and I mean, it's a Robert Zemeckis sort of CG animated film, right? So I'd imagine there is probably some motion capture involved with the Polar Express. In fact, I'd say definitely so because a lot of those faces do look rather realistic, as well as being mapped to, cartoonish bodies. But anyway, which creates the Uncanny Valley effect, of course. That to me, especially since it shares the same director, Robert Zemeckis, is that kind of it feels like a precursor. It probably was not directly a precursor. This was 5 years later, right? It feels like a precursor to the full motion capture CG film, A Christmas Carol, 2009's A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey as Scrooge, which I like quite a bit. I mean, I'm a fan of Jim Carrey. He's probably one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. I think just, especially films where Jim Carrey gets to be himself. I'm less of a fan of films in which Jim Carrey is playing a character that's like clearly, well, it has elements of Jim Carrey, but is like a costume, or he's clearly playing a different character to just a guy. um, and that ties into How the Grinch Stole Christmas as well. Like that's something I enjoy because of Jim Carrey and not really for any other reason. But yeah, Christmas Carol, I do quite like that film, especially considering it's a PG rated film. And that's the case both in the BBFC rating system in the UK and also the MPA system in the US. And it's it kind of pushes a lot of boundaries because it's got some very sort of disturbing imagery, or lightly disturbing imagery, what you can fit in at the PG rating, but and also some rather jump scary moments. Yeah, it's certainly quite boundary pushing for a PG rated film. I suppose I'll go through some of the rest of the ones I've noted down. later. But Josh, do you have any favorite Christmas films you want to mention?
Well, as much as Home Alone's very generic, Home Alone's, it's still entertaining as much as it's not, again, it's not the best film, but it is from, sort of childhood memories, and it's nice. Um, Nightmare Before Christmas, just because I'm going to throw this out here and argue it's a Christmas film, is also quite fun, especially for looking at stop motion animation, which is fantastic in that film.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
so, I'm trying to think. There's a lot. I feel like I've seen several hundred Christmas films. I've just entirely forgot.
Yeah, the interesting thing about The Nightmare Before Christmas is, as you said, yeah, you were saying, oh, I'm going to argue it's a Christmas film. And that's the thing, because people argue as to whether it's a Halloween film or a Christmas film. And some people just like to watch it on both occasions. You know. um, I think I would have been a lot of a bigger fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas had it been a childhood favorite film for me. I only watched it a few years ago. And so it didn't hold quite the same sort of have quite the same sort of impact for me. It's a very well done stop motion animated film. It's directed by Henry Selick, of course, who went on to do Coraline as well years later. But moving back to Christmas film territory, it's a very well done film, and I do like some of the songs certainly, but it doesn't quite have it doesn't quite go into sort of magical territory for me. It's not something I choose to watch every year. There are a few others though that I do choose to watch every year. Specifically, and this is strange actually, because I think a lot more people would choose to watch, at least when we're talking about Raymond Briggs animations, would choose to watch The Snowman from 1982. But no, I actually like Father Christmas quite a bit more. The semi-sequel, well, not really sequel, but certainly spin-off, because there was later a sequel to the Snowman and the Snow Dog, which I was not a hugest fan of.
Oh, I always said there might have been a Christmas film I'd forgotten. That was one of them. Snowman was a thing I used to watch on an annual basis, up at my nan's, on a VHS, in the most wholesome little environment, and then that sort of faded out after a while, but I still watch it from time to time. I've only ever seen Father Christmas once, I think, a very long time ago, and I remember it just being sort of entertaining and fun enough, but in my opinion, obviously not as good as The Snowman, but that may just be because I remember The Snowman from my childhood more.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I think that's also the same for me. Sorry, I cut you off there, but anyway.
yeah, and then I think obviously Snowman and Snow Dog, everyone got incredibly excited about it because all of a sudden this, thing that had been in everyone's houses for years and years suddenly went, well, here's a sequel, and all the kids jumped on it and went, oh my god, it's a dog. And then you get to it, and it's just called sort of The Snowman, but with a dog.
Yeah.
And somehow it's less entertaining.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, I don't remember this exactly because I've not seen I've not seen The Snowman and the Snow Dog actually since it first aired on Channel 4. So um I don't remember. I remember that they actually added dialogue. Is that right? Did they add dialogue to the film?
I don't remember, but again, it's been a long time. I think I did only watch it that one time it first aired, maybe a second time at another point, because I just went, well, if it's just a snowman but with a dog, then I can just watch the snowman, which is the snowman but better.
Fair enough. Yeah, I for whatever reason I remember there being some form of dialogue in The Snowman and the Snow Dog, which in Father Christmas I'm fine with because Father Christmas is a very more dialogue-oriented story. But as a sequel to The Snowman, right, which is dialogue-free and sort of rises on sort of the strengths of its animation and score. Animation with music is sort of the way that you view The Snowman. You don't go to get the dialogue-heavy film. So if I I don't know. Can I find facts about this somewhere? Because I don't remember if the Snowman and the Snow Dog had dialogue or not. Either way, it was not particularly memorable. Oh god, I'm just now I'm doing some Wikipedia research here, which has been sourced, so I can trust it. Apparently, there is a mobile game of the snowman and the snow dog?
Why do I feel like I've seen that once? Just along, you're bringing up memories I haven't thought of in years here.
Ah, cool. Yeah. Well, I don't know. They sound strange. It was a mobile game released by Channel 4 a few weeks in advance of the film in 2012, December 2012, right? For iOS and Android. Apparently, it reached #1 in the iPhone and iPad game charts. Was downloaded over 1 million times in the UK and Ireland.
That's impressive.
Can't imagine what that game would have been like. I suppose I'll look it up later. But
I think it was an endless runner of some form,
of course, it would have been.
and you just basically flew forever.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. And like dodging various obstacles and all that.
Hmm.
I guess like Father Christmas is just is very good. It's something I've really enjoyed since I was a kid. So yes, it is a childhood favorite for me, really, and probably why I enjoy it more than the Snowman. Fun fact: the Snowman. I guess this is a spoiler, but I assume most of most of the people watching, if you're UK based, will have seen the Snowman and potentially Father Christmas. But anyway, the Snowman. A spoiler warning. But the Snowman and the young boy do make a cameo appearance in Father Christmas. So essentially, they do take place within the same universe, um, which is cool to know. The other thing about Father Christmas is, I guess, I guess it's a similar reason as to why I quite like A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey, is that rather edgy for what it is, Well, for lack of a better word, edgy, that is, maybe that word is a bit overused. But it's just, the thing you notice immediately when you get 5 minutes into the film is that Father Christmas says "bloomin" every like 3 seconds, and it's hilarious. And there is a counter, I think, and I think someone has counted like something somewhere in the range of the mid-70s of uses of the word "bloomin" in the film, which is interesting. That's an interesting one to me. You have any other films you want to mention, Josh?
No, and you'll stare another memory from deep beyond the grave.
Fair enough. Well, and then I suppose the separate type of Christmas films that I enjoy, those are like traditional Christmas films that I quite like watching, But also in recent years, I've enjoyed watching a bit of a alternative Christmas film, which is how I would describe the film we're going to watch, the film we're going to talk about today. But also, there's a few that I found out about and watched only recently that I've actually gotten quite fond of. And so mainly I would like to mention Anna and the Apocalypse, which, to provide everyone the full description here, if you've not heard of it before, it's a Scottish Christmas zombie musical comedy film, which is quite a handful. So yeah, very weird amalgamation of genres that you wouldn't think would work, but strangely it does, because the musical numbers are a little cheesy at times, but mostly very engaging, memorable. They are things that I enjoy. I mean, even beyond watching the film, Hollywood ending from Anna and the Apocalypse is something I enjoy listening to on occasion. But yeah, certainly a different type of Christmas film. You could argue that it's not necessarily a Christmas. Well, actually, no. I think this is a case. This is sort of a weird exception in which it is a Christmas film, but it's a Christmas film you can quite easily not watch at Christmas because Christmas doesn't take that much of the plot. So yeah, Josh, I know you haven't seen Anna and the Apocalypse, but I would highly recommend it, even if you're not the biggest fan of musicals, I would say, because it still does, for me anyway, it managed to get me engaged in the story and the film itself, despite the fact that yes, it is a musical, and I'm not the greatest fan of musicals. I do enjoy some, but it depends.
I'll take that.
Yeah. Another one that we've both seen, Josh, is Better Watch Out.
Oh yes.
Sort of
Last thing.
yeah. Now, I remember I watched Better Watch Out first about 2 years ago, Christmas time. And I remember rather enjoying it because it's all built around a central twist of a home invasion at Christmas. It's a home invasion at Christmas with a central twist that gets revealed fairly early on, but thankfully is not revealed in any of the trailers. At least not to my knowledge. If it is, then that kind of defeats the whole surprise of the film. But hopefully it wouldn't have been. And yeah, it's a Christmas horror film, so I think probably a similar tone to what Krampus was going for, though I've not seen that.
Krampus is interesting, and I'll talk about it later probably. It's definitely interesting.
Oh, yeah, cool. But it's yeah. The first time I watched it, I did quite enjoy it. I think it was mostly based on that surprise of the twist and seeing where the plot developed from there. Second time watching it again, really all I had to rely on was sort of the creative use of sort of blood and gore that it goes for, which is, to be honest, not as prevalent in a Christmas horror film as I would, not as prevalent as I would expect from a Christmas horror film, or at least that's how it's being built, So second time around, I think without the surprise of the twist and me knowing what was already coming in the film, it's not quite as rewatchable as I would have hoped. But I do still enjoy Better Watch Out, and it is something I would recommend at least maybe once if you're into horror films, if you like your horror films with a little bit of Christmas in them. The classic, of course, It's a Wonderful Life is something everyone likes to mention. Have you seen that, Josh?
I actually haven't. Honestly, I haven't watched very many classics, as you put it, back in 60s, sort of black and white Christmas films.
Oh, this is 1946. We're going way back, but yeah.
Oh, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away where I haven't watched enough films from yet.
I get what you mean, yeah. I understand your viewpoint there. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is maybe going to be a controversial viewpoint. I do quite appreciate classic films to a certain extent, but a lot of them have certainly not aged well, because their pacing is very much slow, and which I can handle. I can handle a slow-paced film, but slow pacing with sort of very dull moments, and I guess a certain lack of excitement in some of them. In some of them, it's handled very well, but it really depends on the film. There are some films that have aged very well, and that people would even call timeless classics, and there are others that I think struggle to sort of be entertaining in the sort of current standard of films. But yeah, at least to a certain extent. I don't know how you think about it, Josh.
I mean, I think part of the problem with a lot of classic films, as I realised watching a couple of them recently, well, I say recently, within the last few months, is that they sort of lose a bit of their impact because everyone builds on them. So I know recently I managed to watch the first Jason Bourne film, which I somehow hadn't done. And I was sitting through the whole thing and it just kind of came at me and went, well, that just felt quite generic. And I feel why they all come out as boring is because everything's gone, well, that was a good film, so we'll copy that film and bring that trope over, and it keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
So like with the Jason Bourne, it's like, oh no, he's lost his memory. It's like, I wonder whether he turns out to be some government agent in the end.
Well, that's the thing.
It's sort of like that whole he's forgotten it. Some weird man wakes up somewhere without his memory. It turns out actually he was some really special guy. It's sort of a plot point you can see coming from our way because everything else has done it. And I don't know if that was because of Jason Bourne or just because Jason Bourne popularized it,
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, Bourne Identity is not necessarily something you'd call a classic film the same way as Wonderful Life, obviously, because that's much older. But I see what you mean there. That does make sense in the sense that there are certain films that came along and popularized sort of certain cliches or certain genres, certain tropes of filmmaking or of storytelling, and then every film after that just carried on with that tradition. The Bourne Identity sort of popularized the whole shaky cam thing, or at least in action films, that is, the use of shaky cam or a very fast-moving handheld camera to do action scenes, and that's not often done very well, especially if we want to talk about the Taken sequels. But anyway, moving back to the realm of Christmas films, yes, I saw It's a Wonderful Life a few years ago for the first time, and I've not actually watched it since. I've only seen it once. But it does have a very uplifting, heartwarming message, and it's a very entertaining film. That isn't a film actually. I would say that is actually kind of timeless. It is a film you can watch at more or less any time and enjoy. I would say, at least in my opinion, I would imagine myself being able to enjoy that film even now. But yeah. And then I suppose this is sort of a separate section really to talk about, but Christmas specials of TV shows. That's a big one, certainly, of what my Christmas viewing will include. Have you got any in particular that you enjoy, Josh?
I mean, I didn't tend to watch very many Christmas specials. I think the most I watched was like the Doctor Who ones, because I wasn't big into very many shows that would do a Christmas special, because a lot of them would happen over like the summer or something. So I think the most, aside from Doctor Who, I watched was maybe Phineas and Ferb, but generally I don't tend to watch that much TV, so I don't tend to see a lot of Christmas specials either.
Fair enough, yeah. Well, there are a few that I enjoy watching every year. And that would particularly be with reference to a lot of sort of animated cartoon series, right? Like particularly Family Guy and South Park have some Christmas specials that I enjoy rewatching. Family Guy Road to the North Pole, I think, is a really engaging episode. I do enjoy watching that every year. I think that's actually one of my favorite modern Family Guy episodes of all time, I would say. It's very, very well done. And the only thing that I really don't like about it is the section. There's a scene towards, those who have watched it will know, but there's a scene towards the end in which Brian and Stewie invade a house, and it goes on for way too long. It seems like it's clearly there to just pad it out into a 45-minute episode, as it is. And it's just like, it's very mean-spirited and kind of needlessly dark as well. But anyway, that is something I enjoy watching annually as well. And then South Park, well, I enjoy going all the way back to the the first season and watching Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh, which is, well, it's South Park, if you've seen it, you'll know it. But yeah, the introduction of the Mr. Hanky character essentially, and yeah, it's very interesting actually, of the messages it brings up at the time about enjoying Christmas and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, the other thing I was going to talk about actually is how you may have noticed recently. I don't know if this still goes on as frequently, right? But I remember certainly in the last 10 years, definitely, that if there's a major animated film or a major animated film franchise for families, that comes out and is really popular, there will always be a straight-to-DVD spin-off centered around Christmas. For some of those, I would say, like, with Shrek, there was Shrek the Halls. That name, honestly. And, like, I've not even seen all of these. I think DreamWorks was quite notorious for this, yeah. So Shrek the Halls, Merry Madagascar, and A Troll's Holiday, most recently. But also Ice Age: A Mammoth Christmas, which is something I have seen, and yeah, that's not particularly enjoyable. Josh, have you seen that one?
I have. It's Christmas Rock, something boring plot with Christmas things.
Oh yeah, the Christmas Rock. I forgot about that. Yeah, but that is something rather. Yeah, that is something rather interesting about that just became a trend. Obviously, I can understand why, because it's clearly something that would just and this happens all the time, or at least perhaps pre-pandemic times, this would happen all the time. If there's one of those films out, you can bet it'll be in the $2.99 with any purchase section at HMV when you're going to buy whatever other movies you're buying. So, and also at like just a random supermarket, if you're just going to get food or a box of mince pies or anything, you could just see, oh look, it's Trolls Holiday on the side. Oh, I can buy it for a cheaper price with my food. I'll go ahead and get that as well. Watch that. And they all tend to be only like 20 to 25 minutes long. I don't think there's not really as much effort put into those as the main animated films, which you would expect. So I suppose briefly, let's talk about our least favorite Christmas films. You want to start with this one, Josh?
I'm gonna have to put this out here, and as of what I've seen currently, I can remember Krampus, because it was very. There seemed to be some reviews saying it was absolutely hilarious, but also you spent most of the film. It's just a lot of very dislikable people, and that's kind of the point. It's supposed to, know they're all horrible people at Christmas, so Krampus comes to do horrible things to them, as is the usual. But there's not even a point where they're going, oh no, people are about to die, and you're going, yay, thank God, you'll shut up for 5 minutes. It's not part of it is supposed to apparently be a horror comedy, to an extent, but the horror comedy bit kind of comes in very late on. So you spend literally like an hour of the film, which is this really annoying cast of people you don't particularly want to keep listening to. And all of a sudden at the end, everyone starts throwing out comedic one-liners in front of scary monsters. And it seems like half the film doesn't start till the very end.
Right.
It's very delayed. I mean, if you've seen it, you might know what I mean, but it's honestly just kind of boring for most of it. You're putting up with it going, so when's the scary stuff happening? Wait, that was the scary stuff? There's like, oh no, scary sentient gingerbread men. So it's not particularly funny, it's not particularly original, it's not particularly scary. So you just sort of left going, well, it's not, and then is it really?
Yeah, and of course it's based on like the mythological story of Krampus, like that kind of anti-Santa creature, right? So although, yeah, I would imagine it sticks to that as just sort of a here's the creepy creature kind of thing, right? I've not actually seen it, but I'd imagine that's how it goes.
Yeah, it is literally like the sort of summary I'd give, if I could, is there's a kid who's written a Christmas letter. He's not happy with it. He does a Home Alone and says, I don't like my family and I don't like Christmas. Tears it up and throws it out the window, and apparently that's how you summon him or something, and he just kind of turns up and then ruins an entire neighborhood for unknown reasons. It's just, there's several external casualties that die that are just some random guys, like a delivery guy who turns up for 5 seconds to go, here's this gift, and it's, there's horribly foreshadowing it's probably done by Krampus sort of thing. And then he turns up again later, dead, and it's like, so why did that guy die? I get it, you're an evil demon, but the point is you punish people who don't like Christmas. So why, if you just come along and kill people, you're not just a demon that turns up at Christmas, you punish people who don't believe, as the film keeps saying. And he just kind of punishes anyone who happens to be within like a 5-block radius of the house. And causes a massive snowstorm and power cuts, and there's just random people who die for no reason.
Wow, right, okay. Well, that actually reminds me of I've not actually seen Krampus. I'd still say I am vaguely interested in watching it, because it is from Michael Dougherty, right, who made Trick or Treat before, and I've not seen that, but of course that as a horror film is much better received than Krampus was. It sounds interesting. I don't know. Obviously, your opinion of it is not exactly glowing, but
It's one of those films that's probably more entertaining if you're just not looking for a good film. If you're just going, this film's probably not going to be very good because of how many different horror films there are about Krampus. It's sort of, you can enjoy it a bit more. But, obviously check it out. It's on Netflix. So,
yeah,
it's it was an hour and a half long, so it's not that much of a time sink.
Yeah, fair enough. But what you said actually about unnecessary deaths in that film, I think I'm not talking about unnecessary deaths here, but certainly weirdly unnecessary injuries. And this brings me to another group of films that I think to begin with it used to be something you could certainly watch at Christmas, but then quickly went away from that. You might know what I'm talking about already, Josh. Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh God, don't remind me.
So I suppose as a kid, yes, I did regrettably now enjoy watching the Alvin and the Chipmunks films to a certain extent. I mean, they're kind of factory made to sort of be something that kids would enjoy, because it's, oh, you got catchy music, you've got cute characters and squeaky voices, perfect three, there you go. And also, well, I don't know actually if maybe they would have been more successful had they all been actual just fully CG animated than, CG characters within a live action setting. But anyway, my point is that in Alvin and the Chipmunks 2, the Squeakquel, take with that name what you will, I think it's a pretty good indication of the film's quality, actually. But full disclosure, yes, I was a fan of Alvin and the Chipmunks as a kid, but obviously I fully realize those films are terrible now. Anyway, moving on, back to where I was. In the first 15 minutes of Alvin and the Chipmunks 2, there are like 3 separate injuries that really feel weird that they're all there, right? Because one of them is kind of completely unnecessary. The other 2 are moving the plot along in some way, but like complete U-turns, really. So obviously what I'm talking about is in the first 5 or so minutes of the film, Dave, Dave, the guy who shouts Alvin, anyway, gets booted across the stage by a cardboard cutout of Alvin. And first of all, like, how could that cardboard cutout, move him that far across the stage? I don't know, whatever. So he falls into a bunch of sound equipment and badly injures himself, ends up in hospital. There you go. So that's one hospitalization 5 minutes into the film. 10 minutes into the film, there's this, Dave puts the Chipmunks in care of Aunt Jackie. And what was it? Her grandson Toby, who, well, in their words, goes pew 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 all day, and what they mean by that is he has a DS and he plays that. But anyway, we later see he has an Xbox and also an Xbox 360 and also a Wii, of which Alvin throws the Wii remote into the TV, because everyone did that in 2009, didn't they? Anyway, and yeah, so but obviously Aunt Jackie gets into an accident as well, falls over, I'll go to the hospital for her. And then later on, there's the eagle mascot at the school that they attend. And yes, the Chipmunks attend a school. If you've not seen the film, I wouldn't recommend it. But anyway, the eagle mascot falls down the stairs, and that's him as well. It's like, it seems a bit morbid, really, like 3 injuries, and we're like 15 minutes into the film. But anyway, the reason why I mentioned Alvin and the Chipmunks is, of course, because the first film kind of has quite a distinct focus on Christmas, even though it's not really a film that you will see passed around a lot as this is a Christmas film. I think largely because nobody, apart from maybe young kids, like to watch Alvin and the Chipmunks at Christmas every year. Anyway. Any thoughts on that, Josh?
I mean, it's Alvin and the Chipmunks. I've burnt them from my brain in a deliberate attempt to not have to remember those things. They existed. They had horrible jokes. And as soon as you worked out that it wasn't anything fun to watch, I just kind of ran away very quickly and pretended I'd never seen them. I think that's when the meeting began.
Yeah, that's certainly how I would think about it, right? I mean, I think Christmas plays a part somewhere in the Squeakquel, but still you would not call that a Christmas film. But yes, Christmas is sort of a central part of the first Alvin and the Chipmunks. I don't know why I know so much about these. Maybe it's because I watched them so much as a kid, except for the road chip. But because that came out when I was probably too old to be watching them, shall we say. Anyway. But yeah, if we were to do a least favorite and include Alvin and the Chipmunks, that would certainly be on there. Another one actually that really I don't know if I can mention it realistically now because I've not seen it since I was young. It's been a while. But Fred Claus, have you seen this, Josh?
No, I feel like I've heard of it though. And I feel like it's one of those I looked at, and the reason why I recognize it is because I recognize it as one of those things to never go near.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a live action sort of family Christmas film, starring Vince Vaughn as well, I'm pretty sure it's like he plays Fred Claus. I'm pretty sure, and it's like Saint Nicholas's brother. So Santa Claus's brother. Yeah, so Fred Claus and Santa Claus, and yes, it's Vince Vaughn as Fred Claus, Paul Giamatti as Santa Claus, and Paul Giamatti is at least rather funny as well. Maybe not funny, but he's certainly entertaining to watch as Santa Claus. But that just kind of completely falls flat because you also have like these very weird squeaky voiced, well, not squeaky voice, but like, whoa, very exaggerated voice elf characters. Because of course you have to have that sort of thing in there. I don't know. I've not seen it in a while, but I would imagine I would not enjoy that very much if I was to watch that right now. What I know I will not enjoy very much if I was to watch it again right now is A Bad Mom's Christmas. That goes into a whole other subset, really, of sort of R-rated American comedies about Christmas. So The Night Before, it's okay, I think. Office Christmas Party, tolerable, it's fine. Some funny jokes, it's okay. A Bad Mom's Christmas, though, is just completely terrible. I know, obviously, the first Bad Moms is not, it's not an excellent film. It's not even a good film, but it's a it's a reasonably entertaining and humorous film. It's, I found it quite funny, to be honest, the first Bad Moms, but A Bad Mom's Christmas is just none of the humor that you would want, and a lot of recycled jokes, but especially these because the whole twist of A Bad Mom's Christmas is well, you thought you liked bad moms, well, now meet the bad moms. I'm like, all right, here we go. So next time we're gonna meet the bad moms. Anyway, but that would probably be going too far down the generations. Yeah, just so the other mother characters are very irritating, not very well done at all. It's just not funny, and actually it's films like that make me think, oh, well, maybe the whole R-rated, super rude, inappropriate humor comedy is kind of running out of mileage. That's what films like that make me feel like, right? Obviously there are great examples of the R-rated American comedy, but that's certainly not one of them. You got any other least favorite films you want to mention there, Josh?
No, not really. I don't think there is.
Let's move on then to the main film discussion of the episode, and that is about a I'd say little known, perhaps little known, but it's more certainly under the radar Christmas film. It's a thriller, horror, feel-good Christmas film from Finland called Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale. You may have seen this film before. It's actually an adaptation. It's a feature adaptation of a earlier film called Rare Exports Inc., which sort of outlines some of the main premise for this film, but obviously in a much more condensed form. So it's directed by I'm probably gonna butcher this name since it's from a country different to my own, Jalmari Helander, who actually also directed a film that I quite enjoyed called Big Game, starring Big Game starring Samuel L. Jackson as the President of the United States.
That is a world to live in. Can we have that, please? Can we get Sam Jackson as the president?
That would be interesting.
I would move to America just to be able to vote for him, please.
I mean, Big Game is a very interesting film. Obviously, yeah, the universe in which Samuel L. Jackson is president of the United States, which would be great. But it's about so the president, played by Samuel L. Jackson, is in a plane and crash lands in the Finnish countryside and meets a young Finnish boy who's part of a tribe called well, I don't remember the character's name, but he's also played by Onni Tomila, who plays Pietari in Rare Exports. So, and then there's like, you know, a bond forms between them in Big Game. But going back to Rare Exports, I mean, I think actually Big Game has a lot of themes and sort of the exploration of the wilderness in that film, and sort of the way it's all done with comedic moments and all that, is something that I was reminded of when I saw Hunt for the Wilder People months later. But anyway, Rare Exports is about a well, it's about a plot to blow up Santa Claus, to be honest, because that is in essence what it is. It's a bunch of drill miners. Well, a bunch of miners find a lot of sawdust in the ground, and Pietari and his friend Juso believe it to be the body of Santa Claus in there somewhere. Sounds wacky enough on its own, but of course what's explained later on, and this isn't a spoiler necessarily, just for your information, viewers and listeners, we will not be talking about spoilers for Rare Exports, but if we do talk about spoilers at any point, we'll give a clear indicated spoiler warning, and on the YouTube version there should be a timestamp below that should give you an idea of which point to skip to hear skip the spoilers. But yeah, it's got a fairly wacky plot line. I'll tell you that. I guess we'll. I mean, it's one of those films that it would maybe be a tough sell to maybe your average movie person. You know, it's like, you know, well, your average, just an average mainstream audience member. Like, would you like to watch a film about Christmas set in Finland in the Finnish language? And they'd probably be like, you know, they wouldn't be exactly convinced. But if you say, would you like to watch a film in which people plot to blow up Santa Claus, they'd be like, hell yeah, let's watch it. Yeah, I guess we'll just get straight to what were your thoughts on Rare Exports, Josh?
It's definitely the most unique Christmas film I've ever seen. I don't think I ever thought I'd see a film where the plot is to blow up Santa, frankly. You know, he's normally, here's Santa, he's the jolly guy, and then all of a sudden it's, anyway, here's Santa, we're blowing him up. And it's nice to see, because this is partially why I watched Krampus really quickly after it. Because it's nice to sort of see a different interpretation of the legend of Christmas and Santa himself. That isn't just, let's make the main villain at Krampus because he's evil Santa. Let's go with Santa as he was before Coca-Cola took him over and made him the big red icon he is, you know, back when he used to be green and all that. And it was very nice to see such a special interpretation of him. Because you'd never, if you took that to Hollywood or mainstream cinema, you know, no one would ever go, what, a film where we blow up Santa? That's not happening. You know, kids wouldn't be happy with that. We're not blowing him up. But obviously, in different cultures, Santa means different things, and they can do different things with him then. And it, you know, it makes up to a quite enjoyable film that you sit through. And if you go in sort of blind, it's sort of like, oh, I see. Yes, okay, this is happening now. And at the end, you're just sort of going, yeah, okay, that happened. This is, yeah, okay. Okay. It just gets nuttier and nuttier as time goes on, and it's like, does this ever stop?
Yeah, well that's
guy.
Yeah, that's the thing though. It clearly makes that distinction. Like, this is an evil Santa, but it's not just, you know, Krampus or any other creature like that, and it's not just simply an evil Santa. It's like you said, it's a Santa pre-Coca-Cola, this mainstream good-natured transformation of Santa in this universe anyway, and it's based on a lot of sort of Finnish folk tales, which is interesting, and it's also interesting to point out that Lapland, where Santa Claus is believed to originate, is a region of Finland, so it's very much a there is a subtitle in the ending film's credits, which is not necessarily a spoiler, but you're warned anyway, is that it's from the original land of Santa Claus, or from the town of Santa Claus, from the original land of Santa Claus, I'm pretty sure it says. And yeah, it's an interesting one. Now, the way that this sort of unfolds is that, without spoiling anything, is that who they believe to be Santa is interrogated by these people, and yeah, you would think like, oh yeah, happy little Christmas film, and yeah, they want to hold Santa hostage and interrogate him. Yeah, wonderful. But of course, his appearance is, as you would imagine, nothing like the traditional Santa. It's already established in these folktale books that he's a Santa that, kidnaps kids, that sort of thing, whether they're naughty or nice, so to speak, as the saying goes. And so the mission then is to sort of stop Santa Claus after children in the this Finnish village start disappearing. So yeah, Onni Tomila, obviously, as Pietari, the young boy at the center of the cast, very good performance, I think. I notice Jorma Tomila is Rauno, who is, I would imagine actually then that those two are also father and son. Yes, they are father and son in real life as well as in the film, so that was probably a fairly easy dynamic to pull off there. But yeah. I mean, do you have anything else to say about it, Josh?
Well, not particularly without going into spoiler territory, but if we can avoid it, we'll avoid it.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, from there, I mean, it just gets very, very wacky indeed. It is, as I said, it is in the Finnish language with English subtitles. If that is something that puts you off, then perhaps it's not the film for you. I would recommend giving it a go, certainly. I realize actually, now that I actually come to it, that it's quite tough to talk about what's so interesting and what's really worth watching about rare exports without going into sort of spoilery territory. So at this point, I will say, yes, it's a Christmas film from Finland that gets very, very wacky indeed. And I would highly recommend it if you can get your hands on it. It is currently available for streaming with Amazon Prime Video. You can watch it just with your Prime subscription. I notice actually Blu-rays and DVDs of rare exports in particular are quite hard to come by. Rare, as you would say. They are rare exports in and of themselves. Still, yeah, a highly recommended film. I will say a lot of it is built on the surprises of the latter half, which for me, watching a second time around, I knew what was already going to happen in the last half of the film, so it was quite not quite as exciting. But I'll put it this way before we get into spoilers. I'll put it this way: it reminded me a lot of the Norwegian zombie film Dead Snow. Have you seen that, by the way, Josh?
No, but I believe I have been recommended it a few times and might have seen it about.
Yeah, well, just to say quickly, my opinion on Dead Snow is that I think the majority of the first film is not very good at all, because it's just a lot of filler sort of horror build-up and like pointless horror plot lines, leading up to, it's like that classic sort of cabin in the woods scenario and things getting creepy and all that, and not really until the last 30 minutes does it really live up to its name. Dead Snow 2, on the other hand, is very much worth watching. That is Dead Snow 2 Red versus Dead. just completely embraces its comedic sort of premise from beginning to end. And yeah, it's an interesting one, certainly. I would recommend those two as well as Rare Exports, but certainly some of what happens in the last half of the film did remind me of Dead Snow and Dead Snow 2. But yeah, so we're going to get into spoiler territory now for Rare Exports. So a timestamp should be marked below, and that will be the time at which we stop talking about said spoilers. But there's your warning. We're going to spoil the last half of Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale now. You have been warned. 3, 2, 1. So really the way to describe this film, if you're going to go beyond a film in which Santa gets blown up, is a film in which Santa gets blown up, and also his little helpers, you know, his elves, so to speak, are all naked and running around. You know. So clearly, I mean, we know this is before the concept of the whole Coca-Cola red suit for Santa came into fashion, you know. So this is how it goes, I guess. But especially first time I was watching this, which was last year around this time, around Christmas time, that did particularly crack me up. It's just, it's very, very funny indeed.
It's hilarious, but also slightly disturbing.
Yeah, I suppose that's how you could put it. Yeah.
It does quite a good job. As much as it is sort of like slightly feel good and sort of a drama, it also does have just that bit once they've captured the first little helper, and they've got him in the workshop, and they do a very good job making him quite creepy. I don't know how, he's just kind of staring and silent. And I felt very unnerved. I was waiting for the part where he, spins around and actually turns out to be the real Santa and horns go out of his head, not one of the little helpers who looks a bit like what we think Santa is. And then obviously his relationship with Pietari is quite fun to watch, just because the way, if you look in the background, you keep seeing him just staring at him from the back, even when he's not in focus. There's just this face in the background staring at him, and it's really freaky. And I liked how well he did it.
Yeah, I think certainly. I mean, you have all those various, and they didn't come off as annoying, I don't think, but various jump scare moments with that first Santa elf, the first elf that they pick up, and that sort of establishes the real sort of menacing nature of the character. And he's also not quite established in a typical sort of creature way, but.
He stays again. It's unnervingly silent. You spend the whole thing just waiting for the inevitable point where he screams or something, and he doesn't. He just kind of moves mysteriously about, and no matter how much you interact with, because every time they poke him with like a stick or a gun or something, you're waiting for the part where he jumps up and makes a big noise, and he doesn't. He just kind of waits. I mean, he does it once when he bites. What's it called? Bites the ear off one of the guys. Can't remember his name now.
Oh yes, he does off screen, but yeah.
Yeah, like that's about the closest you get to a full scary monster view of it. Mm-hmm. Like even when you get to the army at the end, they all move completely silently. There's just this silent army of naked men appearing outside. It's just, and I still love that it's one of his little helpers, and you just see a couple more turn up, and you go, "Oh no!"
I know.
Oh God, no!
And I think there's a particularly great contrast they've created between feel-good Christmas film and disturbing sort of wacky horror film. In the one shot where Pieter is hanging from a rope on the helicopter with the box and flying right over all of the elves, and that's a very good shot, actually. I mean, probably the best looking frame of the film is that one towards the end where Pieter is just looking absolutely stunned while the elves are running towards him. And yeah, that's I think that's to be honest, when I watched the trailer for this film after watching the film itself, I do realize the trailer gives away quite a lot. I think also, like us talking about this now, they found the studio must have found it tough. Icon must have found it tough to market the film without giving away some of those later surprises, because I think I did notice a lot more is that this time around when I was watching, is that the first 40 minutes are quite a large build-up, to what we get in the last half,
Mm.
And it's a lot of sort of mysteries, and oh well, Juso's gone, and the others are gone as well. What's going on? And then obviously all the communications between Pietri and his father. There's a lot of time devoted to that. And one thing you do notice when you watch the film actually is it's only an hour and 20 minutes long, and it goes by very, very quickly.
I mean, my opinions are it's a very nice film. It's very well made, and like it's surprised me. Like I went into it obviously with a recommendation from you. I assumed it would be at least entertaining to some extent, but it was a pleasant little surprise of it's actually slightly spooky. When I first heard the title, I heard Rare Exports, and I went, oh, it's probably just some interesting thing about Santa somewhere, and he's doing something magical. Or like right at the beginning when they go, so we found Santa, and it's going, I see, this is the plot. So they find Santa and then talk to him for a bit, and then start like bargaining with Santa or something. It's like, no, it's just going to be his scary elves for a bit, with
Yeah.
Santa just sat in a warehouse somewhere, conveniently behind door number 24.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in fact, that brings up another point. I do really like the sort of visual representations or visual symbolism in this film, like the 24th door, like the 24th door on the Advent calendar. That's a very, it's a very cool place in which to put Santa, definitely. And then what few action scenes there are, because obviously this is a rather low budget film, are pretty well done. Even the CG is not too distracting, to be honest. It's all right. I don't know, would you agree?
I mean, obviously, with it being low budget, and so it's not going to be anything tremendous, but it is perfectly serviceable. It's not. I didn't look at it and go, "Oh God, that's horrible. He looks like he's made out of rubber." It's just it's notable when everything's CG, but obviously, even in the modern day, you can go, "Well, that big explosion of the giant house was probably CG and wasn't real," But it's more notable if you look for it, but as a general thing, it looks perfectly fine.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, this film did come out in 2010 as well, so it's probably reasonable for that time as well, and for a low budget film like this. It is interesting, actually. I noticed that when I go to Jalmari Hellander's Letterboxd profile, well, not that he's a Letterboxd user or anything, but his director profile, right? I noticed that Rare Exports is actually a more watched and a more popular film on Letterboxd than Big Game, which you'd think would be the other way around, considering Big Game's star power of Samuel L. Jackson. But of course, that film does not seem to be quite as successful. Which I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I do remember really quite enjoying it. Yeah, I've not seen the original Rare Exports short films as of yet. That is something I would love to go back and do. And of course, in case you're wondering, I mean, hopefully by this point you're either not interested in the film or you have seen the film and you're going to and you're here to hear our opinions on it. But the Rare Exports title in itself comes from the fact that then these elves and Santa himself are packaged up at the end of the film and exported to deliver presents, as they would be. That was an interesting way of bringing it back into sort of more traditional Christmas traditions and Christmas sort of Christmas traditions that people know about now with the modern, as I said, Coca-Cola Santa Claus, as you would say. And it's funny as well, like that scene towards the end where the elves are being trained to become to make presents anyway, and to become like shopping mall Santas and all that. It's an interesting one. That is a scene I've kind of seen in other things beforehand, most notably something I forgot to mention before, the first ever episode of The Simpsons, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. Yeah, which is nearly 31 years old now. Anyway, I do like the sort of shift from a rather bleak and like downbeat um, Finland set thriller into a quite jolly and charming feel-good Christmas film. It's a very interesting mix of genres, and like just a little note as well. I really like the drawings and artwork that is set out in the sort of folktale books that Pietro reads early on, and that are featured in the credits as well.
Mm.
Those are very well done. I'm also quite a fan of the Rare Exports logo in itself, of like the little the sort of large Santa within the hexagonal box. It's a cool logo, and it almost sounds especially with the subtitle here, like it was setting up a franchise. I don't know if that was necessarily true or not, but it would have been interesting to see further Rare Exports sequels, although this is certainly an origin story, if there was one, It's been long enough now. I would say this film has a cult classic reputation, but not in the same way as a lot of other films where, they're a lot more popular. I'm not actually even sure, this is a sort of film that would be a cult classic, but I'm not sure if it's actually found its following yet. I think that sums up all the points I was going to talk about with this film. I would highly recommend it. Yeah, like I said, it's only an hour and 20 minutes long, and it is available on Prime Video. So, if you fancy something a little different on your Christmas film schedule, assuming you have one, and not just watching regular films, because maybe Christmas films are not for you. But anyway, and that's totally fine. But if you want something a bit alternative on your Christmas film schedule, absolutely, I would recommend Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale, along with some of the other ones I mentioned. Like Out on the Apocalypse is absolutely worth a go. Better Watch Out, I'd recommend less so, but yeah, I wouldn't not recommend that as well. Yeah, that's all the points I've got to say about Rare Exports. Though, you got any more to say, Josh?
Not particularly, I don't think. It's, other than watch it, it's a good film. You'll probably surprise yourself. I went in expecting it to be quite generic, and then it wasn't, and it turned out to be quite nice.
Yeah, generic is certainly the one word I would not use to describe this film. It's as Josh was saying earlier on, it's very unique. It's unlike any other Christmas film I've really seen, and it does sort of take it is sort of in the vein of a lot of other Scandinavian thrillers of its kind. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'd say check it out. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our little discussion about Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale. I guess, well, I think usually maybe if we have future episodes, this will be a time where we can answer any questions that viewers or audience members will have. Viewers or listeners, sorry, will have. So if you do have any questions, I guess you can leave them in the comments. Just, I guess, questions about films or questions that you want to be answered on future podcasts about what films I enjoy. Any of my film opinions, I'll happily give you. I'll happily talk about films for a long time, to be honest. Films or video games, I can talk about either for very extended periods of time. Thank you very much for being the special guest on this episode, Josh.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, cool. It's been really nice to have you. Yeah. Beyond that, I would say, if you haven't yet, of course, please subscribe to the Krunch Crowd YouTube channel for not only hopefully, more videos like this covering film and TV, but also more reactions to gaming events. I am unsure at the moment whether the Krunch Crowd team will be reacting to the Game Awards live, as that is a rather, at least here in the UK, that is a rather demanding and unrealistic time for us to really react live to it. Because, for those you don't know, in UK time, the Game Awards will be starting at midnight and potentially going on until like 4 a.m. So it'll be a rather late night if we are going to react to it. But if that is in the works, then you can look out for that. There are other gameplay, there's other gameplay videos being planned as well. So look forward to those in the coming future. But yeah, other than that, thank you all for watching. And if you'd like to see more episodes of Film Nerds Central, then please let us know in the comments or by any of our social media channels. And that's a reminder, you can follow Krunch Crowd on Instagram and Twitter. So, and I would recommend doing that. It gives you updates on all of the new Krunch Crowd videos that are coming out. Hopefully this is a podcast we can continue going forward. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time.